Hi everybody, and welcome to English 200 with Dr. B. Um, I am Alfie Garcia. I'm one of the librarians over at UH Westwater Library. Dr. B asked me to give a quick demo on evaluating web resources, and this is anticipation of your assignment of your paper. So here we go. So one of the ways librarians go about teaching evaluating web resources, or any resource for that matter, is to use an acronym called CRAAP. Now CRAAP, aside from sounding hilarious, is an acronym that stands for currency, relevance, authority, accuracy, and purpose. So altogether, those spell CRAAP. So what you'll be doing as you're starting your web search is going through each one of these and kind of imagining it as though they're like checkboxes. And you'll be evaluating each one of these resources based on these criteria. And the first criteria, of course, in CRAAP is currency. So what we're asking for this criteria is this information new? If you're doing web research on Google, what you're going to be asking yourself as you click on a link that comes up is, when is the last time this resource has been updated? You'll be looking at the about pages, you'll be looking at the very bottom of the page to see what the date is. Because basically, depending on the topic, if it's too old, it may no longer be relevant to you. Next thing we want to look for is, are the links working? This is usually another indicator that if the links aren't working, that this website might be really old. If you've ever stumbled upon like an early 90s website and you start clicking around, you'll notice that the links just don't go anywhere. You'll get the 404 error. If that happens, that may not be a resource that may be relevant to your needs. So keep that in mind. Let's start searching for genetically modified foods. So Google does a great job of pushing the most timely results to the very top. So you'll get news results, you'll get websites that have been published very recently, all of which may be really helpful to you, especially when you're working on your paper. But as you start searching and you start digging, because the front page just isn't good enough for what you need to be really cautious as to the things that come back. So as I'm looking through the results, I can see news items published within the past 18 hours. So that would be really good. Keep on scrolling, but I go to the next set of results, and I can start seeing that things are getting a little bit older, since a few months old. August 13th, not too bad. And then I just can click on some links that I think are interesting, and I come to this page. Now, what immediately strikes me is kind of the design of the page. It looks older than some of the more modern styles. So that's another indicator or a red flag that you can use to evaluate how current the information is. But aside from the overall design, we can start looking for the about page, trying to find some dates as to when maybe this is published. As you can see, there's really nothing that indicates when it was published. There's usually like something indicating, well, published last year, or some kind of copyright date, but there's nothing, and I've looked around. One thing you can do is kind of search within the links, start looking around, and seeing what they're using as citations. So in this case, 2003, it's 10 years old already, so that's a red flag right there. See what else they have. Keep on scrolling. 1998. So these things are really looking 1994. Just see if any dates stand out to you. Really nothing current, which isn't a good sign. So I would say, if I were writing a paper on genetically modified foods, then maybe this isn't the resource that I would use. The next step of the CRAAP test is relevance. what you're asking yourself is this really what I need? And there are a few steps to this. First one you ask, does this relate to your topic? So you'll be searching and you might pull up a result, and some of the results might be questionable. It may be dealing with another topic, not necessarily relating to what you're searching for. And that's a case of not being relevant, so you wouldn't use that resource. Seems like common sense, but sometimes you can get sidetracked. Next thing you want to ask is the information at the inappropriate level? What that means is basically you can get a lot of things that come back from Google, but sometimes you'll get things that are below college level or way above college level. And it's really up to you to find that level that's appropriate. And let's try an example search. So we'll try searching for sharks. So as you can see, a lot of these results look pretty good. You got Wikipedia. Maybe you probably don't want to use that for your paper, but it's good as a resource for finding other resources. You've got news. Go down, things from National Geographic. That could be really helpful. Keep on going down. And I've already looked at this link, but it's a good example. So I'll click on Zoom Sharks, and I'll show you an example of what I mean by appropriate level. This website looks like it was made for kids, so the content is it's very basic. It's very general about sharks. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's wrong, but it may not be something that you want to cite in your paper. You can see by the kind of animation style and also what we learned in the last step of currency that this website may have been made a few years ago. We can kind of determine that by going all the way down to the bottom, and usually there's a copyright, and yeah, in this case, 1998 to 2010. That means it was probably made in 1998 originally, and maybe updated later. So I wouldn't necessarily use this website as a resource either. There are definitely more current websites about sharks that you could find, more scientific, especially more relevant websites that are at your appropriate college level. The next step is authority, and that's where you're asking yourself where the information is coming from. What you want to know as you're looking at a resource is who created it. You have to be asking yourself, are they trustworthy? Do they know what they're talking about? Are they qualified? And part of that may be doing additional investigation. So if Professor X is writing about mutants, you might want to find out what his qualifications are, for example. That could be one way of finding it, and you can just do another search in Google. Another thing is to look at the URL itself and see what that's saying about a certain resource. Does it come from a .com? Does it come from a .org? Does it come from a .gov website? Keep in mind that anyone can put up anything on the web. Anyone can buy a URL that ends with a .com or a .org or a bunch of other URL endings, domain name endings. But not everyone can get a .gov or a .edu for that matter. So it may be that .gov or .edu would be more trustworthy than .com, but you just have to take it with a grain of salt. So this one search I've tried using the search terms development on Oahu. I click on it, and immediately we can see Google has a bunch of results. What I'm looking for is the endings like we had discussed. So .org, Prudential, Locations.com. So these are basically commercial websites. So they're trying to sell you something. So they may be interesting to find information. You could find something current, but you may not be getting the perspective that you want. How to live in Hawaii. Again, this is another website geared towards trying to sell you something. along with West Oahu. WestOahu.org is trying to basically pitch West Oahu as a place to live. So it doesn't necessarily mean that the information is wrong. It just means that they have a certain perspective, and that's their authority. And you can find out a lot about these organizations by going to their About page and finding out exactly who these people are. This is some lady. You may not want to just trust everything based on one person. What you're looking for a relevant resource is someone authoritative. So like we had discussed a few seconds ago or a few minutes ago, is sometimes .gov and .edu sites are more trustworthy. So if I were to go in the search URL box and limit my search to only certain domains, I would do that by typing in site, and then .gov, and then a space, and then my search term, which would be development on Oahu. So now if I search for this, I would only get back results that are .gov. So you can see here .gov, 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 and you've got from the HUD department, the Department of Housing and Urban Development. So that could be, if you're looking for statistics, this could be a great resource for you in finding out more information about development, especially on Oahu. So this is the .gov site for Hawaii. You could probably find some really interesting information here. And it's authoritative because you know where it's coming from. It's coming from the state government. That doesn't mean everything that comes from the state government is true, but it's a good place to start.